Hi folks, here we go. This is the final push. Right, this has now had a good 48 hours to dry and sink. This was 5 coats of heavy oxide primer, and now I'm going to wet sand this with a block. You can see a ring, kind of see it around there, where there was a pool of filler that I put in to take out that flat spot. It is completely flat, but that ring's got to be flattened out. Lots of little spots, marks here and there. There's not really any need for filler. I might just put a little tiny, a little bit of just a spread of filler in, nothing much. I'm not going to go scraping loads more in because I think that's enough rubbing for one lifetime. So it's just about finally finishing it off, turning it into something respectable. What's going to happen then, I'm going to use a white primer this time, and that's going to be as a guide coat. So I'm just going to flat this down, get it ready for a coat of white primer, which will then dry, just be a thin coat, just to start getting those final thin layers and make this a respectable job. Okay, let's get rubbing, see how we go. Okay, here it is, rubbed down. I've gone over it with a block and highlighted all the flat spots, and then I've gone all the little pinholes after that. This is really looking a bit of a mess now, but that's the way it goes. Anyone who does this knows what this stage is. This is just final pinhole filling. It turned out that this area here, there was a little bit of like a low spot. Once you get a fine block on it, a really flat block, you'll find that it starts to, you got a high spot here where it's shiny, and this other end where it went shiny. So here and here was higher, and this was still in paint. So I'm just gonna a little bit of filler in there. That just hopefully brings it up to level. This is just really being a perfectionist now because I've put a lot of time into it. Might as well keep going. That little line in there just had some little blemishes in the edge, which when you paint it they just look crap, so that to be dealt with. High spots here, silver steel showing through, so that shows that the block is finding the flat spots, and that hole was a bit screwed up where I put the file through it, so I've just filled that in again. And really this is probably 2 or 3 of these I've got to do. That's a hot load as well. Hot load is when you, I guess you probably already know, it's just when you get your thinner, your filler, you just put a little piece and then you use a little bit more hardener than normal, so that in these sort of cold conditions should go off a little bit quicker. So I'm hoping the next sort of hour or so that will go nice and hard, and I can get the wet block on that and start getting that cleared down. Okay, stick around, see what happens next. Okay, there that is all now rubbed off, and this is really telling because you can see you're getting through the layers and taking out those high and low spots. You've got filler and then primer and then filler on top of that, and that's made that absolutely correct. These little areas here, we're using a hard flat block. These little areas are remaining there because they're low spots, so that's good. That's reasonably flat. Can't do much more to get that flat without a guide coat. Guide coat obviously is just a uniform coat of paint, just a thin one to show you where the little blemishes are. Pretty much all the pinholes are out of it now. All these little pinholes, that there was a pinhole, that was like a crack if you like, or a recess where that little pool of filler went in. That's all filled now, and that filled quite nicely with the paint, so that's all flat, can't feel it at all. So I'm just going to whack a little guide coat over this now, just as white, nothing too thick. And this is just to cover up all the different colours, and then I can see what I'm doing off. I only want a thin coat because I want it to dry, because I want to get stuck in and carry on. White primer, grey primer, red, whatever. Handy to use different colours, and then you can see as you're rubbing down through them. Actually starting to look like a part now. That's it. Now that's one coat. right? So that's one coat, which will take about half an hour to dry, and I'll come back and get some finer paper, some soapy water, and then start flat blocking that to try and get it better and better. Okay, so it looks like then. And there's pretty much the last rub down for tonight. It's falling in the low spots still as usual, but the fillers still come through, but this has stayed this white in place, which indicates that was low. So because it's a solid block that I sand it with, that's getting flatter, that's getting better and better. So all I'm going to do now is build up a good 5 or 6 coats of white primer, and I think pretty much I'm going to call this finished. The reason is, I'm not sure what colour I'm going to paint it. I'm just going to put it on the shelf. It could be that it's going, it's a bit dark to show that. It could be that it's going on my wife's bike, which is white and teal. It could be going on mine, which is black, so I don't know which kind I'm going to paint it. But this, in a minute, I'm just going to put about 5 thick coats of white primer on, layer it up over every 15 minutes. That's going to then dry overnight. I'll then give that 24 hours, 48 hours, and then finally, with a really fine paper, sand that back, and that will be finished. So I'm just going to film this. This is the last one now. Once this is squirted in a minute, that's going to be it. The next time you'll see it, it will be on a bike. Okay, thanks ever so much. See what happens with this. I'll show you just before it's finished. And there it is. It's next morning now. That's it, the finished article. Like I said, about 6 coats of primer on that now, and that's going to be a few days to set really hard and sink. It still feels a bit waxy. There's little blemishes you can see in the, if I can get the light on it, there's little blemishes on it you can see, and they'll just be flattened out with an 800 grit paper, and then that will be top coated. I'm just going to put it down on something so I can show you. Just a quick issue here. This sort of crumblage around this hole where the filler has just sort of crumbled away, that's not going to be too much of a problem, because I'm going to put 1.5 inch plate washer on each one to spread the weight. There's probably about 2 mil of filler across that whole surface to get it completely flat, and what I want to do is make sure that when I bolt that down, it doesn't impact into that filler and perhaps crack it. So just spreading the weight with a decent plate washer, that will do that, so that's not really a worry. This is blended nicely in there and in that side, and this edge underneath has come out pretty much perfect how I wanted it. So although this is an XR12, it doesn't have a filter, pretty much it's going to kind of look kind of like that on the bike, which is what I wanted. It's about probably, I don't know, the whole thing is probably 2 inches smaller that way and that way than the big spam tin thing that I spoke about at the beginning, and it's going to be a lot neater. It's flat on the top, doesn't have that big curvature, and it's just something I made myself. Just going back to some point that I made sort of earlier on in the videos for making this thing. You've made it yourself, you know. If you make something for your bike yourself, even if it is got a little blemish here or there, it's really not important. Something special, you made it, it's your handiwork, and you can be proud of that. So this is just going to get left to sink, like I said, for a couple more days, and then it's going to go on the bike once it's been flattened down with a nice fine 800 grit paper and some top coat, probably satin black, or maybe wrinkle. I know you can get black wrinkle. I might have a little experiment with that on something else and see if I can make it work. Check that it doesn't react and lift all this stuff up. A bit of a disaster. So there it is, really. Pretty much I can say that it's now finished. It's been, what, 8 videos from a piece of bare steel, a cardboard and a pencil, cutting, welding, grinding, sparks, noise, fuss, hammering, just fabrication. It's good fun. Have a little go at it yourself. It really isn't as hard as you think. You can make something like this yourself. You've seen how it's done. You can achieve materials from scrap. It just really isn't hard. So have a little go at it yourself. That's everything from me now. Thanks for watching Delboy's Garage. I'll see you next time. Take it easy.